Ireland, 9,000 years ago, the first peoples. Simple huts made of straw. Fish traps to catch the fish. Well, I had the fire in the center and the sleep to one side. Neolithic Ireland, about 8 to 9,000 years ago. The buildings have changed somewhat. They're more settled now, and the new European thing of crops and farming has been established. And they've gone away from the hunter-gatherer tribes on the move that were used to. We have a grinding stone for grinding the corn. We have what was known as the Fullock Fia. Would have been filled full of stones, hot stones after being in a fire. The meat put on top of them and covered, and the water inside it would have boiled, cooking the meat. Houses are still thatched with lots of oak. We're now gone towards having doors now. Still have our central fireplace with the smoke rising up, where some of the food would have been cooked. They would have been sleeping to the side of the fire to keep them warm. Mom and Dad probably on one side and the children on the other. And inside would have been kept the animals to keep them safe from wolves and other predators that were around Ireland at that time. We're also getting to see our first fields, where we have blackthorns growing to fence off the field. With them thorns, they won't be getting out, but probably more importantly, wolves can't get in. As you can see, the way they have the blackthorns cut at an angle, it's called copacing, to create the hedge and make it thicker. This was known as a passage tomb. It was built 8,000 years ago, and either the bodies, or there would have been burnt bodies and urns and little animals and stuff put in. The sides would have been built up, and then that roof stone would have been the last thing. Bronze Age Ireland begins, and the bigger tombs have been dropped for these more smaller cyst tombs, where the body would have been put into a smaller area in a more fetal position, and they'd be marked by a nice standing stone with some Ohm writing on it on a small bank like so. During the Bronze Age, about 4,000 years ago, we start finding the first circles. Stone circles are found a lot on the west coast of Ireland, but some are in the southeast. They're always made up of an uneven number, and what looks like the start of prayer towards the stars is the main stone. Always kind of shows towards the rising of the sun, the moon, or one of the constellations. So the headstone here, like these here, these two stones will have been pointing at a constellation, or will mark where the sun comes up on a certain day during the year. "1,700 years ago, we have standing stones being put up in Ireland with marks on the sides of them, what became known as Ogham or Ohm, as some people like to pronounce them. All these marks are a letter, so it forms a word down the side on both sides. To give you an idea of the alphabet, this is the Ogham alphabet. A being one single mark, O is 2, U is 3, E is 4, I is 5, then Q, C, T, D and H are off to the left, N, S, V, L, B are off to your right, and then at angles is R, Z, N, G, G and M. "1,500 years ago, Celtic Ringford." The Celts would have lived in little small villages like this, scattered a few miles apart. Palisades for defence against other clans or other families, and obviously to keep wilder animals out as well. Still have our thatched roofs and wood walls. And we still have our central fireplace with the fire base system that goes up, the smoke rising up and going out through the thatch. Ireland being so cold, people didn't want to be wasting the fire, so I've always slept beside the fire. Some on both sides, maybe the children on both sides or guests, and maybe the parents or the rest of the family will have slept up on a little bit of a higher part. This could have been like a meat area. The meat would have been salted and hanging up inside here, because they didn't have fridges in them days, so they had to find a way to make the meat stay longer, so they salted it. And then there would have been Meat would have been worked on here, butchered, washed and cleaned. Cheese, oil, fat would have been all again from this little house. It would have been a central cooking area for the family to cook the meat, while the place was guarded by the men on all sides. It's around this time if we get the first writings of hurling being played 1500 years ago or more by the Celts, often within the family itself here, or taking on neighbouring tribes. $1600 years ago, Christianity came to Ireland when the first monks started landing here and creating little settlements. And this is what one of the first monasteries would have looked like. It would have been a simple little ringed area with a stone church like that, similar to the one that's in Tipperary and the one up in Glendalough. And then the monks would have been living in little beehive huts like so. Still having a bit of the Viking twist to it there with the sticks crossed up there on top.
A very different kind of Christianity was practiced. This was a form that threw from a larger religious community to pass their life in solitude. It is known as anchoritism. The hermits that lived here.
Of course, the Christian always came to an area that was already being lived on by the Celts, whether it was a Celtic village like the one earlier, Ringford, or where a standing stone like this. They came and put their Christian churches on the same site for the pagans to try to bring them in towards the faith. And when the Christians came, they wanted their own mark in the area. This is where the Celtic cross originated from. It was always adorned with pictures from the Bible, stories from the Bible, Jesus on the cross, monks, and a corporate has some Celtic knotwork into it. And some of these still stand in Ireland today. 1,000, 1,500 years old. A reminder of our Christian past. And this is where the monks would have made a few pound by writing out deeds and scriptures, getting it all on paper, similar to the Book of Kells. Well, it took hours to make one page with the beautiful scripts that you can see there. The writing would have been like that. We were all in Latin. Corn drying kiln made by the Christians. Dry the corn. Would have been dried slowly under that thatch and then ground here to make bread. And beer. When you were close to a water resource like this, you would have had a flour mill where the water would have been released into the wheel down there turning. Flour or corn would have been packed into that box and it would be feeding its way down into them blocks. The water turns to stones and the flour comes out at the edge into that square box and then put into the sacks. And that's why people's teeth were very short back in them days, because the stone from the granite mixed in with the corn wore people's teeth down. And that would have been an early corn mill powered by water. A full of Fia. The hole in the ground would have been full of water, and sticks were stacked and stones were put amongst the sticks like so, and rocks, probably a lot bigger than them now, and the whole thing was put on fire, and then the hot stones were thrown into the water with the meat, creating the water to boil, and then it would have been covered, cooking the meat. So you'd have been able to cook a large amount of meat at one time to feed your family or your village or your tribe or whatever it was like. But that was the first mass cooking experience, and there's a few of these dotted around the west of Ireland have been discovered. Real folk fields, obviously just ones for display purposes, but that's what it's for. Heat the stones, boil the water, cook the meat. Most of Ireland was like this 2, 3, 5, 6,000 years ago. There was a whole lot of fields, it was all marsh and woodland. Recently, in the west of Ireland, there's been a couple of pats like this found in the bogs. And it's got proof that the Celts made raised palisades of timbers to keep themselves up out of the water, help get through from one village to the other. So in theory this would have been very similar to what the Celts would have done years ago, a raised walkway through a bog, peaty bog wooded area. The Irish High Kings would have held councils in round houses similar to these. They were known as Henri Choch, the King's House. They've been drinking lots of mead, and the king and his officers, court and soldiers would have held many a meeting and debate here for future wars. A Viking settlement with its longboat in out of the weather. Vikings were still using the fire in the centre outside the thatch, and they would have slept on both sides but in more of a larger volume. It's part of the original Motte and Bailey, built by the Normans, and I think it was 1167. It was built out of rock. That's the original trench that was put around the Motte and Bailey to make it secure. And up here then would have been a timber castle and maybe the startings of a wooden castle. Later this tower was built in 1857, I think, to commemorate a heap of Wexford men who died during the Crimean War. It's modelled on the old Irish bell towers that were used as the defensive structure for when the Vikings were invading Ireland. So people could come from around, they could get their gold and their chalices, and they would have got up in the tower, which was only accessed from a doorway which should be a lot higher than that. And then there'll be a staircase going up to a couple of rooms. That's a bit low now for one of the original Irish ones. This was only a model, of course. Originally the door would have been like there somewhere, and there'd have been a very long step ladder going up to it, which had been pulled up by the last person during the time of a raid. But this is where the castle was standing, and it had a commanding view over the River Slaney coming along here, going from Enniscorthy down through Carlow down here into the bay around the corner and into Wexford. That's Wexford Harbour.